Today is the 30th of May. Across the globe, among the Biafrans, we target the Heroes Day. And we recount the experience of our fathers, these heroes that we remember today. We recount what was their dying expectation, what was their dying need, what was the reason for them to exercise or to go into war. And in that research, we discovered that one of their dying needs was relief for their people. And that relief have never come. One of their dying wish was for their children to enjoy peace of the transiting government. And that peace have not been enjoyed by their children. In the United Nations charters, all those principles are not being fulfilled, or we are not beneficiaries in any way in those charters, because our domestic rights have been violated, our civil rights has been violated, and the Western dominant African policy of domestic activity is affecting the growth of our children. For instance, the United Nations Charter on the Violence Against Women or Girls. Our women, our girls are being used as a pawn by this same Western government putting on these policies in place. That is to say, our domestic and civil rights are not being protected. So we want to make it vividly clear to the electronic world that the people should know that the British and American government of their African policy is violating our domestic and civil rights, which has caused our children not to be able to achieve their expected God-given goal. This diversification, this diversity of thought and interest is affecting our growth as a people. They have ruined our culture. We are not being identified by who we are. They have made us a people who is being termed to be a desperate, hungry people, whereas the wealth that fill the world come beneath our feet here in the East. Yet we are being termed as being hungry. Yet we are being termed as being poor. This is the reason why we say that our fallen heroes did not make a mistake to act or to agitate for their freedom as a nation. And we cannot relent. We will continue to pursue this goal until it comes to reality and manifestation. But today, we are not in the field as merchant soldiers. We are not in the field as terrorists. We are not in the field as gunmen, but we are here as a kingdom council to see that our culture is being restored and then educate our people the direction of their existence in line of our culture. We have to understand that a people cannot be governed except they are being built upon the foundation of the domestic existence. The government policies and that of the laws of the Western community have crippled the existence of heritage when it has to do with our culture and our tradition. This is what we want to correct. This is what we want our people to understand. Number one, our people experienced 200 years of slavery into building America. And yet, we still pay visa to go to America. Our question is, where is the Commonwealth? if our parents have served in that order, it is a subsidy to we, the new generation, thereby declaring visa-free to whomsoever that want to travel to America or British from this land called the Biafra today. That is our right, because there was 200 years or 200 years plus suffer in America, serving America, building their wealth, building their commonwealth. They were exporting our parents from here and importing us cotton. So making their wealth strong and demoralizing us here. We seek for justice. We seek for apology. We seek for redress and a proper restoration of that commonwealth. That commonwealth. We have a part in it. And how can we be the member of the Commonwealth community and we are not enjoying the benefit of that Commonwealth that we are part of? Another point we will look into is the neglect of this region. We have been neglected. Even when we fostered a political movement to seek for appropriate leadership, we are still neglected. This total neglect is what we want the international community to redress. This neglect is what we want the transiting government to redress, so that we can be part and parcel of the Commonwealth and enjoy its benefit as it is. Now, the stage that we expect today is the fourth stage of our slavery, which is where Africa is being made to look like an embarrassing stage. It hurts me as an African. And as the first son of Africa, which is Igbo, I stand to challenge that authority. Our reason or our responsibility is to see that that gospel that we are hungry is not the true gospel. The true gospel is that we are rich and our riches is being used to feed the Western world. And we are hungry here. That's what we address. That's what we complain. That we want to correct. That is why you are here as the president. The number fifth principle of this racial domination that we face today is what they call partnership. Today we are hailing Dangote refinery. We have launched Dangote refinery, but that is an act of partnership, which is a modern day slavery. Partnership looks more correct. It looks more politically sound, but then it is an injury to our future existence. The reason for partnership by the American policy or domestic policy today is to control. The reason that British and America is doing this is to gain control. In partnership, they control our resources. They control our government. We report to them. We do not have that domestic and civil right of independence and liberty in our mineral resources and what have you we can talk about. That is the blessing beneath our feet. This is the reason and the point for the kingdom to rise in our botanical process of cultural tradition to restore the dignity of the land. We are not interested in their Nigeria and what they do in Nigeria. But we know that the end shall justify the means. That is the reason why we are here today. And I wish to present to you in short term this address. I call this conference a security conference. The security of our people is our concern. And when we talk about security, we do not talk about the soldiers with gun on the street. We do not talk about the ESN with gun in the bush. We do not talk about the Bubago. We talk about the cause of this rampage. When we get to the cause and fix it, then we will have peace. That is the security approach that we want to apply. And in that approach, we have to let our people know the source of our problem and how we can fix The security of our people is today threatened by highlighted positive development that have moved our message further along the road of sustainable peace. I want to use this medium to pay my tribute to the fallen heroes of Biafra for their willingness to put first the interests of the people and the nation. In the agreement on a transitional government, so that the peace agreement and the country can advance to a new government that can prompt positive change. That change we have not experienced. Relief was the overwhelming feeling expressed around by the heroes, with internally displaced people and refugees being able to urge, that was the reason, that urge the protection of civilian and neighboring sites as they return back to their hometown as refugees. These regard the interests of the United Nations mission, with its protective presence to build confidence in the area of returned refugees. But then, that confidence was not sustained. We have faced constraint in the rebuilding, rehabilitation, and reconstruction and security-related incident that has hampered a more effective responses. With upsurge attack on the people over the past years, and agencies were forced to scale down activities and gradually withdraw personnel from this region. Parties are allowed for greater respect of international law, but then that law had been violated in the case of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And this law and protection of civilians who are trapped in a crisis that is not of their own making. In this generation, we have experienced none of this agreement being fulfilled. Then we are asking, of what continuity will it be to our children to live in this kind of condition? If the expectation of our fathers have not been met with, do we, generation this day, continue in that expectation? I think the answer will be self-explanatory. We come to the area of our girls. The United Nations progress over the past 2 years and half decades in the fight for gender equality and against violence against women and girls is still not only common but accepted in many parts of the world. If these policies or this progress is being accepted, the report released on the status of women had dropped so far here in the Eastern region. Yet, the world has not seen any reason to restore the nation of Biafra. For our women and girls to have that equality, to showcase their true identity of culture and existence. That will offer our people security and providence. Without our cultural heritage, we do not have security. Without that our traditional heritage, we do not have providence. And under this domestic tyranny that the Western world have introduced to us as African policy, is dwindling our understanding and our children's growth towards the cultural establishment. The British and American government has in some sense to reach out, to engage with the East to see stability and the economic growth and security as a part of their foreign policy is a new development for foreign slavery. It is an irreversible trend for them, but we stand up to say no. In many ways, they set that process in motion in Africa. They have dealt with us essentially in 5 different stages. Each of these stages cost us so much. The first stage was 200 plus years we suffered as American development in the process. That is, our fathers developed America. 200 years of work without wages. They were not paid. That is a subsidy. 200 years of raw materials. When I say raw materials, I mean viable raw materials below market rates. were carted away. That is as well a subsidy. Many of their investment firms were shipping companies, importing Africans into America and British as slaves and exporting cotton. And so, the foundation of American and British wealth grows hugely, connected to the first stage of the relationship with Africa. And the basic lack of rights within the country was domestic policy. This domestic policy, it is where we are being crippled by this Western community. And that domestic policy lies upon our culture. The Civil War essentially was driven not by a conflict of anything, but by a conflict over how would we handle domestic policy. This domestic policy was the reason for the Civil War. The Apata decision of 1896 or the 1954 decision were all driven by this US and British African policy towards domestic and civil rights. We have been denied this. The second stage was that of neglect, just neglect of exploited continents. They neglected us and then caused our children to be criminals. Because if they had done the actual rehabilitation, rebuilding and reconstruction, our children would have had hope to live. But we don't have that hope. Our children don't have that hope. The third stage was using Africans as a pawn. Our daughters are being used as pawns in so many ways, in the war crisis, in every other manner of humiliation, because they feel they have colonized it. So we lack respect, we lack development, no government ever to bring it in the tent of a global policy. What a mess for our girls and women. This is the stage that hurt me much. The fourth stage was the African paternalistically, or simply relating to Africa as an aid and a kind of gesture towards people who is known for starvation, towards people who is known for desperation, towards people who is known for embarrassing. They were able to give us some aid and did so in manipulation. They claim that they are giving Africa aid, but the condition Africa is today, the condition Igbo man is today, is the condition that the Western world wants us to be. It is not that we cannot develop ourselves. Devaluation is their major apparatus of deceiving us. The fifth stage was partnership, as I said. In the paternalistical approach, they changed the gospel of our culture, of our people, and bring us their own. For 200 years, our children have lost sight of the true gospel. This is the reason why we say that our people cannot continue in this malady. The fifth stage of this partnership that we have introduced is a principle of racial domination. In this partnership, they have come to ensure that we report to them. In partnership, they become the boss. That is another politically correct slavery. That is another morally correct slavery. That is another type of slavery that you will be suffering and smiling. That is a good pretty deal that they have got for themselves. But that strategy in our leadership and generation will not continue. The Americans and British government has put forth a rather specific energy plan that will cause energy crisis, which they will try to address it, because it becomes a major structural commitment that mutually benefits and, of course, host American companies' investment and continued presence is all tied to the energy focus. There, I thought that a pretty of a deal is being set. They will create these energy problems And in these energy problems, they will land on our lithium and exploit and extort this lithium, believing or making us to believe that they are addressing the global energy problem. It is not a problem, they created it, it is coming. It is an energy crisis that they have brought. And we always want our people to be prepared. We have not seen, lastly, today was a classic case where we focus on education. What part of education are we focusing on? Educating our people for the need to raise the cultural literacy level in the region. The cultural literacy level in the region is a thing of a special attention. It is a call of duty because literally our children no longer understand the basics foundation of our culture. They no longer understand the principles as tied to that domestic and civil application of our culture. That is our area of education. Whenever a country is committed itself to a path of democracy, that country must promote human rights and transparency in government dealings. But this transparency in government dealings and human rights we have not enjoyed, but rather it brings about conflict of interest of law. Such a government becomes investment attractive. But today, we do not see this investment attractive in Nigeria. We have to build for our people. We have to restore it. We have not seen or enjoyed any fruit of political stability and democracy and human rights. That's why we work so diligently to gain more victory in the democratic column, because historically, at least in one stage, we put military and security and trade on the top, and human rights and democracy in the margin. But now, by focusing on human rights and democracy, as we struggle with the concept of Biafra freedom, more than any sustainable growth is based upon, in some measure, that kind of stability, I will say, is the stability we need. Lastly, that we look in our minds today, we import more greater agitation for freedom across the levels of the world. Not only in politics, but among all the corporate investors. But so has the mass media also been our aid. Clearly, we have seen that America and British need not only expand trade and aid, but debt reduction and stability. In as much as we remain in Nigeria, we will always owe debt. Because this is one of the strategies they will use to clamp the growth of the economy down. Any president that will not borrow money will not rule Nigeria. That is why Buhari today is leading debt of 700 billion or more or less, because that is what the Western world wants. That debt reduction. They cannot allow us to maintain debt reduction. They want us to go there so that they can extort from us. Because they have an interest in African development, which interest is a modern economic slavery. It is connected to their growth and is connected to the world security, and Biafra is the worst nightmare of those wolves in sheep-clothing nation, as mentioned above. The new administration will make a massive move, which move will be a turning point in how we saw the civil rights and domestic policy. That is what King Charles is coming to do. That is the administration report. The spotlight will go into dark places for complete revise and how we see domestic policy. And there will never be another serious foreign policy debate that does not include the African fact in terms of security or trade or stability and growth. Thereby, gentlemen of the press, having heard the compelling circumstances and oddities of our people, we advocate Nigeria for 3 presidents towards a peaceful dissolution, as well as not to continue in a plunge game of the West. We seek liberty of freedom and purpose. Freedom of Biafra is irreversible and irresistible, as we make demand to uphold our domestic and human rights as a people and as a nation. The British and American government has violated the domestic and civil rights of our people in Biafra and as a black race in general through Nigerian government. We seek redress, apology, and a chance of existence according to the dictated conscience of our cultural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.